Welcome everybody to today's product update webinar for June 2023. My name's Kris Brown. I'm the VP of Product here at RecordPoint. Very excited today to share with you this update. Joining me today is my team. We've got Chris Tune and Daniel Kang, my product managers, and Belinda Walsh, my product marketing manager. We're very excited today to talk to you about all of the cool new things that we've been delivering and talk a little bit about how that's going to help you and your organizations with your requirements. What I want to do very quickly is make sure that you do use the Q&A section to capture any questions or comments that you want to make during the session. My team will be taking a look at them. We'll also make sure we answer all of those questions either at the end of the session or we'll get back to you. So if you do ask questions, feel free to chuck them in there. But otherwise, we'll get going now and work our way through the demonstration and the product presentation today. Certainly what we're going to see here is a bunch of new updates. It's going to be very, very key. Make sure that we actually have an opportunity to get across all of these. So there's lots to cover, and we'll jump right in now and talk about the intelligent signaling updates. Now, one of the most important things that we've done more recently, there's been a bit of a trial going on with a number of the customers. Over 20 of you have taken the opportunity to jump through the trial and started to use the new intelligent signaling update features that we released earlier in the year. A lot of these features are all about helping you to identify and signal privacy in your organization, and obviously the types of information that have private details in them, but also other signals like ROT signals as well. Many of you will have seen from that last webinar that we had that intelligent signaling module allows you to detect both PII, PCI, as well as that ROT. We've now processed millions of records and identified a number of key trends. Really, really interesting things. Like for all of the people that were involved in the trial, nearly 31% of the information that we processed had some form of PII information in it. 6% contained what we would call critical PII. So details like a tax file number, a bank details, a driver's license, or maybe even a passport number. And 1% of the millions of items that we processed had what we would consider to be credit card details or very, very detailed financial information that probably shouldn't be there. This sort of information actually helps you as an organization to see where this type of information is living in your organization, on top of all of the other metadata that we're capturing, and also the automated processing of the classification intelligence. This information makes it really, really clear in our reporting what's going on. And I guess the upside for yourselves here is you don't want to be the next organization like a Latitude Financial, an Optus, or a Medibank, some of the bigger breaches that happened here in Australia, or the Department of Justice and others globally. A number of these people have suffered serious reputational damage, and there's been a number of financial consequences and fines because of these breaches. And in a lot of cases, they could have been eliminated, if you will, by having good information management and data governance processes in place and having that understanding of what's in their organization and across their business. Now, one of the other upsides of the intelligent signaling product is we also actually did deal with duplicate detection. So we're now able to, across all of the different sources that you manage across our Enterprise Connector framework, produce a hash of every single piece of content. Now, that content hash is not just of the individual file, but the hash of the content inside the object itself, ensuring that regardless of the metadata that might be wrapped around that document, that two documents that are exactly the same, regardless of where they're kept, are identified as duplicates. Now, duplicates would normally be considered ROT, or redundant, obsolete, and trivial information. So it's really, really key for an organization to be able to eliminate this ROT across their organization, helping them to deal with obviously that information creep, dealing with what type of information is stored where, even just simple data minimization, where you're actually able to reduce the amount of information that you've got under management and also reduce the storage that you've got across the organization. So you can see here a really simple example inside the product. Once you've got that intelligent signaling tool turned on, you can actually see there's a new duplicates tab, and those hashes are there. So you can see in this example that a CV has been stored in a number of different places on SharePoint for this customer, and that you can actually start to work out, well, what would I do with that next? Should I be keeping some of those objects? Should I be looking to be dealing with those in another way? What I want to do now is talk about some really exciting classification intelligence updates, and I'm going to hand over to Daniel Kang, our product manager, to talk to you about those.
Thanks, Kris. Before we get into some of the more recent updates to classification intelligence, just want to touch on our AI and ML capabilities. So our classification intelligence is a supervised learning system. You give it example records in the taxonomy, and it will figure out how to train the model using the text of the records, not metadata. This is especially ideal for content sources that don't provide rich metadata like email and file shares. We maintain full transparency on the data that was used to train the model. So if your data scientists do want to know how we trained it, the information is there. We keep an audit trail connecting every classification and our confidence in it back to a specific model and the data that was used to train it. Now, most similar classification products will only let you have 40, 50 categories. However, our unique hierarchical learning model models your entire file plan, deep and broad, allowing you to manage thousands of categories without an extensive data set. Now, the model will improve itself based on user feedback, correcting mistakes, and accommodating for data drift. Now, the training section of the UI, I put a real emphasis on making classification intelligence easy to use, so you don't have to be a data scientist to use or understand it. These recent UI improvements refine the usability even further, so you'll see clearly defined tables, new overlays, the ability to filter, and so much more. You can now view the entire file plan in a hierarchical format and select which categories to be included or excluded from the next training model, and only start the training when the user has completed all the necessary changes. All categories have a status, so you know which are included in the model, which are queued for inclusion, or which are excluded from the model. A key improvement is you can now clearly see categories who have enough eligible records to begin training. So here's a bit of a before and after that helps everyone appreciate the improved usability. Previously, you had to find each category one by one on the right-hand window. It's very difficult for users to add and remove categories, so whenever the user clicked OK, it would immediately start training, and they often had to wait 24 hours if they forgot to add a category. It's made it difficult for the user to configure if they, want flexibility to add or remove categories. You can now view the entire file plan in a hierarchical format and select which categories to be included or excluded from the next training model. And like I mentioned, only start the training once all the changes have been completed. Now, a key improvement that allows for users to start feeling confident in scaling their auto classification is the new customizable thresholds for auto apply. You choose the threshold for auto applying categorization to the records, so essentially you decide how accurate the ML model needs to be before auto apply takes effect. Now, here's a bit of a before and after. Previously, auto apply was simply on or off, but now you can pick the threshold value that the document needs to hit before it is automatically classified so that you know that you are in control and you are now able to scale your classification with our CI feature. Finally, I'll go through the precision file plan targeting. So the rules engine is at the heart of the RecordPoint data trust platform. It's a key part of classification process for customers. And the new precision file plan targeting provides users with a strategic link between classification intelligence and rules to promote, more efficient and scalable record classification using known information. What this allows for is that the records that end at those specific nodes to bypass known unrelated levels of the file plan machine learning. So essentially, it means there's less reliance on a rigid rules tree and more streamlined process towards scaling your classification. So if we examine the previous version of the rules tree, if the document hit the end node, people may not know where it would go from there. It would just push records to the top of the ML model when it reached the end of the rules tree. So you can now either manually set to a specific category or a trained category model, a parent node. And this will allow the document to bypass, like I said, those unrelated levels of the ML model, allowing the CI to be more precise, but also train the model with more relevant documents, improving the accuracy even further. I'll quickly go through a quick demo of our new CI platform. So if you look at the left-hand side, I'll go into the training section and we'll chat about the auto apply thresholds first. So previously, like I mentioned, it was simply an on or off, but now with the threshold, we can set it at such a particular confidence score. So in this case, I'll set it at 0.9. And you'll see on the right-hand side that the auto apply threshold has now been updated to 0.9. So what does this mean? Essentially, when a document is ingested and is being scored via our CI, it has to score over that 0.9 threshold to be automatically classified to that record category, which for the average records manager will make scaling classification that much easier. Like I said, the UI is so much simpler and it's just a cheeky turn it on, pick a number, and you're good to go. Now, if we look into the training tab, you'll see that it looks almost identical to the file plan with a few changes. So if we just look at the headers alone, it'll show you which record categories are currently used for CI, how many eligible records there are. So let's pick finance. You can see that it shows me that there are 15 current eligible records. Now, if I were to hover over it, there's not enough record categories to train categories. So we now have this enhanced UI. So you no longer have to guess if you have enough records or wait until the end of training to see failed and then find the reason, as well as the disposal class number on the right. Additionally, you're able to use filters on the categories to find specific criteria of record categories. For example, if I want to find all the record categories that have more than 50 eligible records, you can now search for this. Now, we can also include or exclude as many categories for the next training model, and once configured, start the training. So in this case, I'll include these record categories for the next training. So you now have that flexibility to, like I said, include or exclude as many as you like for the next training model, even while a training is currently in progress. Now, I'll quickly demonstrate the model targeting. Now, with model targeting, you can essentially assign different ML models to different levels of the rules tree. Because of what you know from the rules tree, we can target specific areas with that particular part of CI. For example, the document has to be, either a contract or an invoice if we know that it's not going to be in the site's finance HR. Also, this makes the rules tree a lot simpler and easier to manage. So once you get to a level where the documents are going to be a part of that particular section of the file plan, you just send it to CI and let it work it out. So in this case, I know that it has to be either agreements or contracts or invoice. So I'll select that particular model and apply it. Obviously, because it's already applied, I can't reapply the same model. So what does that mean? It means that there's less reliance on a very rigid rules tree and a more streamlined process towards automated classification through intelligence. Now I'll now hand it back over to Kris, who will chat about our new Microsoft Teams connector.
Thanks very much, Daniel. Great demo. And look, I'm really excited about the new classification intelligence UI and the features. Being able to auto apply at a set level now means that you are able to choose what amount of risk you're willing to take in terms of that automatic classification, simplifying your workload and only dealing with the objects that don't meet the threshold that you set. Meaning that with the millions of objects that you might need to manage, only a very small percentage now with well-trained models would actually end up being require a suggestion or having to be triaged by a records management officer inside your organization. This is a huge advantage. And then to reiterate, file plan targeting, allowing you to say, you know what, this is definitely not a file that belongs anywhere other than in the finance section, means that I can now choose that area of the file plan and have CI choose literally just from the models that are in that area. Again, simplifying the rules tree and making it even easier to ensure that the right documents are entering up with the right classification. Just a really great new features and very, very excited for everybody to start using it. Now, Daniel mentioned the Teams connector. Look, we absolutely very excited about this. It's been one of those things that people have been talking about. There are now hundreds of millions of Teams users worldwide. We ourselves are one of them, which means that businesses are changing the way in which they communicate. Having information stored or making decisions from conversations that are being had in Teams is now one of the most important part of what I do every single day. And I'm sure a lot of your organizations are doing very, very similar things. That ability to have those channel chats available, managed long-term, becomes incredibly valuable. And this is just another connector in our suite, meaning that all of the value of classification intelligence, the intelligence signaling, all of the retention and disposal, the rules actions, everything else that's in the RecordPoint Data Trust platform now applies to content coming from Teams channels. And that just means that this is more and more of your data is able to be managed in exactly the same way. This actually gives you that holistic view of the M365 environment, not only your SharePoint, Exchange, OneDrive, but including now in their Teams as well. We've always captured the files that have been stored in Teams. So if you were putting something inside a Teams channel and you were storing a document, that was always captured because it was in the background managed in SharePoint. However, we're now capturing all of the channel information in the chat itself, allowing you to ensure that you have that history wrapped around those documents that would have been stored and managed managed from a team collaboration. And usually we get asked, what does that really look like? How do you make it look like a chat? So what you'll see on the screen here is just the output of what we capture. So you can see all of the individual people's details, the time, if they're using GIFs or memes or emojis, that's all captured in here in the chat. And of course, the objects themselves, the documents, are also then stored as records inside the environment as well. So again, this is something that's very user friendly. It's downloadable from Records 365 in the event that you're in a position that later on those channels don't exist. Because in case you're not aware, our friends at Microsoft have recently included the delete features for chat as well. So by default, that's actually now being rolled out to organizations. So you may find that you want to have a chat to your organization if you're not already managing Teams information and you have lots of important stuff in there. The fact that they can now go and actually delete those group chats is a new set of features that have been added to Microsoft by default. You can turn it off. But again, that's another reason why you might want to consider that Teams connector. Not only are you able to capture and manage it now, if they did need to delete it and clean up their environment, you'll have that record for the right period of time. And you can obviously use the classification rules, retention and disposal to ensure that you've captured it for that right period of time. I now want to talk about what will seem like a smaller improvement, but has been one of the most requested, I'd almost say painful parts of what a records manager has to do with Records 365, and that's exporting. One of the most interesting things about what we did when we first built the export tool is we thought, let's make it nice and simple. Our customers are going to have Azure storage. They're a part of the M365 environment. They'll all be able to, be able to download this nice and simply and easily directly into their Azure storage environment. As it turns out, IT doesn't like other parts of the business using that, and it's been a bit of a bane for a lot of organizations is, we just want to be able to do the exports, but we have to configure all of this extra stuff in order to be able to do so. That's now gone. So what we're actually able to do now is you're able to do your bulk exports and have them jump directly into the Records 365 environment, so you can download them directly there without any need to set up any storage location, have any different credentials, or talk to your IT administrator. As a RecordPoint user, as a records manager and application administrator, you have direct access to your downloads. And more importantly, in building this, we've also used all of our new bulk techniques to ensure that we've increased those export limits as well. So you can now store even more information in those exports. And then as an enhancement to this functionality, we've also built in export templates. So instead of having to choose the fields that you want to capture each time and redo that export, you can now save that set of fields as a template for the different requirements that you might have on a weekly, monthly, daily, or otherwise basis, meaning that it's very, very quick to reload a template, push the search that you've got from your saved search and export that data and get on with your day, ensuring that you're able to repeat that export if it's needing to go to another system, or repeat that export if it needs to go to another user who might actually have to work on it in another way. And so what I'm going to do now very, very quickly is kick across to Kris Brown, who's going to give us a quick look at the new export and export templates.
Okay, thanks, Kris. As Kris mentioned, we've made some really improvements in the export area. Before you had to have your own Azure storage and even to be able to use the exports, and that meant liaising with your IT team to get that set up and managed. And it was actually also more complex even to get hold of your exports once they were processed. And like Kris mentioned, we've brought that all into the platform now, so you can perform that all in one place. And that's what I'm going to show you now. So as you can see, I'm in the RecordPoint platform, and I'm going to use the advanced search just to find some records that I want to export. And I already have a saved search, which is all about a report that I use to identify any TFNs which have been submitted to the platform in the last quarter or the last 6 months. So I'm going to use that report. And as you can see, it's brought back a number of records which it's found TFNs in there. And I want to export this so I can explore that further. So let's just go and select all those and use the export feature. Now, you can still export to CSV and VEO, but we've increased the limits on these. You can now export 1 million rows to the CSV and 200,000 to the VEO as well. So I'm going to increase and select all of those. And previously you had to choose all the columns that you wanted to be on that export. But as Kris mentioned, we now have export templates. And these are great if you are performing recurring exports and you want to keep them in the same format, or if you want to share these templates with your team as well. So I'm going to go and use one of those templates that I've created to actually set that template up. As you can see, it's brought back all the columns that I want to export. Now I can still add or change as well, but this just gives me that reusable template I can use. Let's go and export that. So that's been submitted now to the platform, and that will start processing. And when that completes, I'll receive an email saying, here's your export. Previously, you would have to have gone to your Azure storage and found the export. But now what it does, it sends me back to the Records 365 platform to the export area. And in here, you can see all the exports that I performed over the last 3 months. And we'll keep those exports for 3 months, so you can go back and download those. Again, you can see all the list here, and what I can do is just download that directly from within the application. There's no need to go off to somewhere else or find that. And you can see it's downloaded that straight away. So to wrap up, we've made some real improvements around here. There's no Azure storage anymore. You can download directly from within the platform. And we've increased the limits and made those reusable templates to really streamline that process. And we really feel this is going to help. Okay, back to you, Kris.
Thanks very much, Kris. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be great. I can't wait for people to start using that, and I'm sure we'll get some great feedback on the new templates as well. So let's just quickly talk a little about a feature that we spoke about at the beginning of the year, and that's our enterprise reporting. I want to reiterate that all of the information across all of your RecordPoint environment is now available in that new reporting. If you haven't already tried the enterprise reporting, please jump in and do that. Not only do you get that if you're using, say, for example, the signaling trial, there's now even new reports around the privacy area as well, giving you extra detail, and we'll continue to improve all of the information. And the simple messaging as it relates to enterprise reporting is to remind you that everything is available there. It's able to be accessed via Power BI and other logging systems. There's no more downloading through Azure storage if you want to actually report it. And you can share those reports easily and simply throughout your organization using something like a Power BI, again, without having to go and download and put things up on a desktop version of Power BI. So a huge set of advantages, and certainly something that we want to remind everybody of. And again, in the background here, you'll see that there's a bunch of new cool information available in those reports, and you should definitely be having a look at that, and we'll continue to add more information into these reports as we move forward. Now at RecordPoint, one of the most important things that we do is actually manage electronic and physical objects. And so a number of key features that we've added in the last small while have been all around those physical records. So what you'll actually start to see from us is a number of highly requested updates and user enhancements as it relates to how you interact with your physical records. So again, simple things like the ability to view all of the profile fields together in one place, able to add and edit and delete from these. Again, all in one place, nice and simple. Was one of the easy way for organizers to do it, using the new grid models that we're putting in, allowing you to filter and do those other elements and do it all in one space. More importantly, when you're in there editing an individual field, if you actually had a big long list of things that you wanted to put in, instead of having to key them in individually, you can now import from a CSV. So you can see here on the screen, being able to import that list that you've already typed out, or it comes from another system, and put that list of values directly into that physical field now makes it much easier to do so. Remembering too that you can edit this as you go along. One of the other big ones was the ability to do while I am in the record details, be it that folder, box, or record, being able to jump in and actually perform the actions from that field. So you've done your search, you've found the record. This is definitely the one. You're looking at the records details screen. Previously, you'd have to jump back then to the search to be able to select that record and do the function, but you can now perform all those functions from in the records details page. So again, that editing, managing it on hold, adding a file part, moving it to other areas is all included here now inside the environment. So you can see there that there's a number of really high value physical folders, physical records, and physical boxes updates, helping you to actually manage that physical environment inside your Records 365 world. Again, remembering that all of this data is available in our enterprise reporting as well, and all of the rules trees, the retention and disposal all wraps around this as well now. So again, adding high value to these core functions to your records management capabilities. Look, I want to thank everybody for attending today. We look forward to the next quarterly update and any future webinars that you'll see, so make sure you look out for those. If you have any questions from today's webinar, make sure you drop them into the Q&A. We're going to hang around for a little bit after this to make sure that we answer any questions, and if we need further understanding, we'll jot them back and forth with you. If we're unable to answer your question today, we will make sure that we get back to you. So please leave us a contact details if you haven't already registered those as well, and we'll make sure that we get them back to you as well. We'll leave that Q&A online for the next 2 minutes, and we'll certainly answer everything online if we can. But with that, I want to thank everybody again for attending, and we'll see you all next time.